Welcome to the Jay Sizzle Basketball Podcast. Today, I'm going to be touching on one specific topic. It's actually one topic that kind of revolves two teams. And I'll talk, a little bit about the details and talk about obviously what I think about that and where that topic can go from there. But before I get into what my topic is, make sure you guys go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and like these videos if you didn't like it. The last podcast I put up a couple days ago was on Zion Williamson, right? So go ahead and check that one out. Let me get right into it. So this next podcast, I'm going to talk about the Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Lakers game a little bit last night. I'm going to talk about that because I want to really focus on the Phoenix Suns because they're having an incredible season right now. But I really kind of also want to focus a little bit, not too much, but a little bit on Anthony Davis and the comments that he made the other day about the Suns. So the other day on a podcast, on a talk show, hold on, let me read this. I don't know exactly what it was. But Anthony Davis was quoted saying, they asked him about what if him having the groin injury was the reason they lost to Phoenix last year in 6 games. As you know, they lost to Phoenix last year. And he said it was. He said, we know that, they got away with one. So I have a couple issues with this comment how I view it. I haven't watched the full interview where he said that or whatever, the podcast, what it was. I will go ahead and do that later, and then I'll go ahead and maybe put the same thoughts or different thoughts into what I think, but more than likely it'll be the same thoughts because that one quote right there is easily one of the dumbest quotes I've heard. It's not even that it's just dumb, it's the way he said it, right? And the thing that really kind of irked me a little bit about the quote is where he said, they know that, they got away with one. That's where that doesn't really make any sense to me because if you want to go back and talk about injuries and talk about teams not being healthy, how about we go back to the Lakers winning the championship when Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic, key parts of the Miami Heat, missed multiple games? I can make an argument that the Miami Heat would have won that series. I'm using the same exact logic as Anthony Davis is using. Right? So maybe they should have asked Anthony Davis about if they won a ring, about when they won a ring against the Heat, if it was a little unfair because they played a Miami Heat team that wasn't fully healthy every game. And they were fully healthy. Maybe they should have asked Anthony Davis that question. That's where the line is not fair. Right? That's where it's not fair because you're calling out saying this team only won because of this and this. Well, you guys only won the championship because the Miami Heat had 2 key players out. I'm not saying that that's the reason. I'm saying that I'm using the same logic as Anthony Davis is using. Same exact logic. So maybe the next reporter tomorrow or whenever he gets interviewed, I don't know if he ever gets interviewed because he's on the sideline 90% of the year. Whenever he gets interviewed, if they should ask him that question and say, do you think your championship against the Miami Heat means a lot? Because obviously you don't think the Suns beating you meant a lot. So do you think your championship against the Miami Heat means a lot since there were Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic who were both out for multiple games in that series? Right? I mean, it's the same thing. And that's just, again, that's like a comment. That's a thing you don't really say. Right? There's multiple reasons why you don't say something like that. A, because you're not healthy. You're never healthy. Which I'm not saying that's your fault, but you're never healthy ever. So we can't see you perform on the court. During a span of 3 seasons, we see you play 10 games. So you really can't say that. Another reason you can't say that is because you're taking away credit from a team that was one of the top teams in the West last year and is the best team in the league right now. It's not like they had a fluke season last year just because they beat a couple injured teams. That means that they can't do the same thing. Well, they're doing the same thing right now. They're the best team in the league. They're going to get by the first round easy. If they have to play the Lakers again in the first round, they're going to win that series 4-0. I don't care. LeBron, AD on the court, they'll beat the Lakers 4-0. They'll win every game by double digits. And the third reason why that's a dumb quote is because you said that on the night before you lost even though, you didn't play, you said that on the night before your team lost by 30 plus points to a Phoenix Suns team. You don't say that kind of stuff. You don't say that kind of stuff. It's a very dumb comment. If you want to say that kind of stuff after you let's say the Lakers played them 3 times this year. The Lakers have played them twice, I think. They got smoked both times. Let's say you played them 3 times, right? This year already, or even twice. Let's make it more than 1 time, right? So we can make an argument here. Let's say you play them more than 1 time. And let's say Anthony Davis was healthy. You were healthy, Anthony Davis. And you beat them by a good amount both times. And even if you weren't number 1 in the West, you beat them by a good amount both times. Then you can come out and possibly, if you want to, say they got away with one. But you can't come out and say they got away with one when even when you were on the court healthy this year, you guys weren't that good. You're the same team as last year. I understand you added Westbrook, and people say, oh, Westbrook hurts. But at the end of the day, you're pretty much a very similar team to what you were last year. Westbrook may hurt a little bit, but he helps in some ways. So I think you're an even team from where you were last year. And I just think those are really dumb comments. I have never really in my life seen an NBA player go that far to make those comments and say, oh, that team doesn't. Basically, what he said is that team doesn't deserve credit. They got away with one. Well, you got away with one when you won the finals against the Miami Heat. Right? There's a lot of reasons I can say you got away with one. I can say you got away with one because you were in a bubble situation that nobody really kind of knew exactly what the situation was going to be like going into it. I can say you got away with one because Bam Adebayo, Goran Dragic were hurt for the majority of the games or for a good amount of the games in that series. And if they're healthy, I can make an argument that Bam Adebayo could have been a force to stop you, and that Goran Dragic in there instead of guys like Kendrick Nunn, who was a rookie at the time, Goran Dragic could have done something really positive for that team because he was a veteran. He's a veteran. And he could have given that veteran a playoff experience that he already had. So I can make that argument too. And honestly, like, it's not even a bad argument. You're talking about two key players for the Miami Heat, one of the best defenders in basketball, a good scorer who gave the Heat like 17, 18 that year. And then you're talking about a point guard who gives the Heat like 17, gave the Heat 17, 18 that year with like 5-6 assists, right? Like, like having those two guys for all the games and having them not miss like 2-3 games like they did, yeah, that would have made a difference. So I'm using the same exact argument as Anthony Davis. Now, Devin Booker came back and responded to these comments, and I think he responded in a very mature way, actually, because I think he came about it and didn't attack Anthony Davis, didn't attack the Lakers, just came about it in a mature way. He said instead of just taking the instead of just taking the high route, you have to make a comment like that. It's kind of funny. And he's right. Anthony Davis could have taken the high route and said, you know what, the Phoenix Suns were a better team. Almost every single player in the NBA will say that when they lose to a team, even if they were hurt. They'll go out and they'll say, you know, they were a better team. Nobody really, if you look at most guys in the NBA, yes, injuries affect the game, but nobody really blames their season on injuries too often. Like, it's pretty rare. And guys that do that are usually guys that, you know, get ahead of themselves too much. You don't blame your season on injuries because at the end of the day, you're playing sports. You're playing a sport in basketball where guys are running full speed to the rim, getting hit in midair. You're playing where guys are, you know, crossing over other guys. You're playing a sport where guys are setting screens, getting hit hard to the ground. Like, there's going to be injuries in basketball. There's going to be injuries no matter what. Right? So for, like, Anthony Davis, again, to come out and make those comments, it was pretty foolish of him. And Booker had a good response. He was basically trying to say, there's always injuries in sports. That's part of the game. Take the high road and say we were a better team, because the Phoenix Suns were a better team last year. They were a better team throughout the entire regular season, and they were a better team throughout the entire postseason as well. And guess what? A year later, Anthony Davis, I know you haven't been healthy that much this year, but the games you've been healthy, Phoenix has also been better than you guys. And now you got all these like articles coming out now on SB Nation, and SB Nation is great. I'm not saying anything about it. I love SB Nation. Give a shout out to them. They're incredible. Their articles are great. But you got a lot of these places like SB Nation and other stuff talking about how the Suns were lucky to beat the Lakers. Like, how about the Lakers were lucky to beat the Heat? Why do we never see that narrative, right? It's always a narrative that favors the Lakers, in my opinion. That's what I don't like about this whole thing. It's always a narrative that favors the Lakers. And that's why I don't feel it's fair. If you honestly ask me, I do not think the Lakers would have beat the Suns even being healthy. I don't. I don't think that would have made a difference, to be honest with you, because I think Phoenix was a better team. And I think that Phoenix had the best player in that series. You can make fun of me all you want. Yes, is LeBron a better player than Devin Booker? Yes. But who was a better player in the playoffs last year? Devin Booker. So I'm like, it's just like, I don't know. And DeAndre Ayton, like, Anthony Davis couldn't do anything about him when healthy. He was pretty much shutting down Anthony Davis too. Mikal Bridges was doing a great job on LeBron the entire series. Like, LeBron averaged 23 points per game. Mikal Bridges was holding him to low field goal percentages, low points per game. LeBron wasn't getting back on defense. I mean, there's just so many different factors that go into the reason they lost. But I don't blame it on the Anthony Davis injury. I blame it on the fact that DeAndre Ayton outplayed Anthony Davis when they were both healthy. I blame it on the fact that Mikal Bridges defensively kind of locked up LeBron, to be honest with you. And I also say the fact that Chris Paul and Devin Booker were the best duo in that series by far, and it wasn't even close. Chris Paul and Devin Booker are a better duo than Anthony Davis and LeBron. Right now, they are. That's a fact. I'm going to have people in my comments, Lakers fans, saying this and that. Well, Chris Paul and Devin Booker are a better duo than Anthony Davis and LeBron James, even when both duos are healthy. I don't care if Chris Paul and Devin Booker don't have a championship. They just got formed a year ago. That doesn't matter to me if they have a championship or not. Right? Like, at the end of the day, that's a better duo, in my opinion. Let's talk about a little bit, now that I move on from that, let's talk a little bit about the Phoenix Suns and the season that they're having right now. So the Phoenix Suns, as you guys know, have the best record in basketball. They've been playing incredible, both at home and on the road. They killed the Lakers last night, 140-111. Wasn't even close. Really, in reality, yes, they beat them 140-111, but in reality, when the starters were in, they were up by like 40-something, 50-something at some point. So, that game wasn't even really close. threw out any ends. It wasn't even. Anthony Davis could have played, and they still would have lost by probably the same amount. Honestly, it wouldn't even matter. That's how much better the Phoenix Suns are. So you're looking at the Phoenix Suns. I think Devin Booker's having the best year of his career. Averages 25.6, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, shooting 45% field goal, 37 from 3. Best year of his career, in my opinion. How about DeAndre Ayton? Averaging 17 with 10 rebounds per game. I mean, that's an incredible statistic right there. And the thing about DeAndre Ayton that's really stood out to me this year is DeAndre Ayton's ability to play top-tier defense. DeAndre Ayton could end up being an all-NBA defensive guy when the season's over. He's played incredible defensively. The knock on DeAndre Ayton 2 years ago was that, yes, he can score the ball. Yes, he can. And the knock actually on him was we know he can score the ball, but the 2 knocks on him were he can't rebound and he can't play defense. And now he's bringing the same scoring he's always brought, but now he plays great defense and he rebounds great. So, when I watch DeAndre Ayton, I kind of always look at him and say he's the most underrated player in basketball. I think he does a lot to affect that team. And I think if you were to take DeAndre Ayton off Phoenix, I don't think they wouldn't be nearly as good. He makes a big difference. He's their rim protector. He's one of their best defenders. I'll get into their defense in a little bit, which is incredible. But he's a great rebounder. And he plays hard. He plays hard. Every minute of the game he's in, he plays hard. And he gives the Suns that effort and that energy that they need. And he's kind of their GOAT. He's kind of their hype guy, too. He makes a lot of plays when he needs to. And he doesn't make a lot of bad mistakes. Doesn't turn it over a lot. Knows how to move the ball. He passes the ball pretty well. When he doesn't have a good look, he moves it. He doesn't ball hog it, right? And that's been a really big thing as well for Phoenix over the years. So I'm really happy to see DeAndre Ayton's growth as a player the last 2 years. And, he played incredible last year in the playoffs. And I think some people thought, okay, well, DeAndre Ayton, maybe he won't be as good. Maybe he's been even better than he was in the playoffs last year, in my opinion. He's gotten even better. This is the best season of his career. So I'm really happy to see DeAndre Ayton playing the way he's playing because, it means a lot for this Phoenix team to have him playing that way. Let me talk about Mikal Bridges, who honestly is one of my favorite players in the league. 13.7 points per game, 4.4 rebounds, 2.3 assists. I'm not even going to focus on the points per game. 84% free throw, that's great. 36-3, that's good. 53 field goal, that's incredible. So I'm not even going to focus on how many points per game he scores. Because if Mikal Bridges wanted to score 16 points a game, that's probably his range. He's about a 16 point per game scorer, in my opinion, if he wanted to score. But instead of doing that, he throws 100% energy on the defense, and he's easily one of the best defenders in the league. He will 100% make All-NBA first-team defense this year. And he should be in the top 4. I think he already is, but he definitely should be in the top 4. If he's not, he should be in the top 4 for Defensive Player of the Year candidates. He's an incredible defender who can defend 1 through 5. Now, last year he defended 1 through 4, kind of struggled defending 5. Now he can defend 1 through 5. He's very agile. He moves very well. He can shoot the 3-ball incredibly well. Now he's starting to put the ball on the floor a little bit more, get into that mid-range spot. He doesn't get to the rim great, but he cuts really well. So he can't put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. He can put the ball on the floor, shoot his 3, put the ball on the floor, shoot his mid-range. But he cuts to the rim really well. So that gives him a lot of good looks when you have great passers like Devin Booker, Cameron Payne, and Chris Paul, right? It gives him a lot of looks down by the rim when he's cutting and stuff. So that really helps Phoenix too, and it helps spread the floor for Phoenix as well. So really cool to see Mikal Bridges playing the way he is. The Torrey Craig trade, I think for a lot of people were like, why did you make that trade when they traded in to get Torrey Craig? But I think that was a really good trade in all honesty when they traded Indiana. Because I think Torrey Craig being on that team last year when he went to a championship, Torrey Craig is one of the more underrated players in the league. He's a solid 3-point shooter, shooting about 30% this year. Yes, he can improve that, but there's some nights where he makes 3 or 4 threes, and he looks like a great 3-point shooter. So, and a lot of times he has those nights when they need him to, so that's why I say he's a good shooter. And he's an incredible defender. He can defend 1 through 4. Incredible defender, defending 1 through 4. He does it at a very high level every night. He gives 100% energy on that end of the floor, and Torrey Craig's an incredible player, and I think it was a good pickup for them to get him back. I think they gave up Jalen Smith, but at the end of the day, you got to understand, Phoenix is a young team, but they're trying to win now. They're not trying to keep all their super young pieces and wait 3 or 4 years for them to develop. They would rather bring in a guy like Torrey Craig that they know is developed already, and they know that helped take them to a championship last year. That's why they brought in Torrey Craig. It was a great trade for Phoenix, in my opinion. Jay Crowder, averaging 9.7, right? That's usually around where he averages, shooting 34% from 3, very solid. 40% field goal, could improve that a little bit, but not terrible. 5.3 total rebounds. So when you look at Jay Crowder, right, you're talking about a guy who plays lockdown defense when guarding 1 through 4. You're talking about a guy who can shoot the 3-ball really well. That's really what it does. He doesn't score mid-range or inside really well. If you leave him open for mid-range, he'll knock it down. But that's about it, where he doesn't really get open there too often. He's a great 3-point shooter who can knock down threes. He can put the ball on the floor. He can't put the ball on the floor. He can play great defense, right? And I said the same thing I said about a couple other players on this team. I said he can defend 1 through 4. Think about what that means. Jay Crowder can defend 1 through 4. I also said Mikal can defend 1 through 4, right? And I also said Torrey Craig can defend 1 through 4. There's a couple other guys on this team that I'm going to get to that can defend 1 through 4 as well. That is such a benefit to a team, right? And that's part of the reason that makes Phoenix so good. They have so many guys that can switch onto this guy, switch onto this guy. And when teams set picks and they switch and they get other defenders onto other guys, well, those defenders are just as good as the other defenders because they can defend 1 through 4. So that's what makes it so tough to play Phoenix, is they can lock up 1 through 4. Devin Booker is the only defender that's not that great on that team, but honestly, he's not even that bad of a defender. He can play defense. Chris Paul is an incredible defender. Jay Crowder's an incredible defender. Mikhail's an incredible defender. So is DeAndre Ayton. That's your starting 5. And they're all great defenders, right? So that's part of the reason this Phoenix team is so good. They have so many guys that can switch on to other guys when they get switched, and they switch on to them well, and they can defend them, no matter their size or their build or whatever. That's part of the reason why Phoenix is so tough to play, because every single night, they're arguably, in my opinion, the best defensive team in basketball, maybe other than Boston. And they just have so many guys that can switch, and they're so flexible with their rotations defensively. So it makes it really tough for them, for opposing teams to play Phoenix for sure. I want to talk about a couple more guys here. Yeah, I got to talk about Cameron Johnson, shooting 44% from three-point range, averaging nearly 13 points per game, 4 rebounds. A knock on Cameron Johnson 2 years ago is that he wasn't a consistent shooter and he wasn't a good defender. Well, change that narrative. Cameron Johnson's turned out to be a very solid defender and an incredibly solid three-point shooter. He hit the game winner against the Knicks a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I want to say, or 1 week ago. Incredible game winner. He's had an incredible season. He had like 38 that game, but he's had an incredible season. He's been consistent. I think Cameron Johnson was a guy that when they drafted him, a lot of people saw light for him to be a really good player, and then it kind of simmered down a little bit the last couple years. But now you see it kind of growing again. He's very young, right? You see Cameron Johnson's ability. You see him growing as a player, and that means a lot, man. He shoots a 3-point shot really well. He's played, I think, almost every game. He only missed a couple games this season, so he stays relatively healthy for the most part. He plays good defense now. He doesn't really defend 1, 2, or 3. He can kind of defend 3, not really, but he defends 4 and 5 very well. Last year, teams would kind of attack him defensively because he wasn't very good defensively. This year, he's been very good defensively, and teams don't really attack him as much because he's a good defender. He's really improved on that end of the floor, and that's really helped his team as well. Because, when you got a guy like that who can defend like that, the 4 and 5 position, he defends well, and he can shoot and spread the floor. It makes it really tough. Cameron Johnson's a nightmare for a lot of teams when they play him because it's hard. I know he comes off the bench, but it's hard to kind of grasp what he's going to give you every night because he spreads the floor so much with the shooting, and he plays good defense, and he can really do a good job on your 4 and 5 players. So makes it tough for sure. Chris Paul's out, but he should be back in a couple of weeks. So definitely be back before the playoffs. So it'll be nice to have him back. For him, it's a sad injury, but it hasn't really affected Phoenix, to be honest, because they're so deep and they're still in the regular season, and they're so far ahead of Golden State and Memphis in that first spot that they're going to get the first spot no matter what. Right? The West is going to run through Phoenix again this year, so that won't really matter. But Chris Paul's the kind of guy that he's such a veteran. He's so good that I don't even think when he comes back from an injury, he won't even need time to adjust. I think he'll adjust right away game 1 when he comes back. And he should be back a week or 2 before the playoffs, from what I'm hearing. But he won't even need time to really adjust because he'll already, he knows the game. He's had injuries before. He knows how to come back and get back for them. So Chris Paul's still one of the best point guards in basketball. If you ask me, when everyone's healthy, he's the 3rd best point guard in basketball behind Steph Curry and Damian Lillard. Maybe Ja's a little better than him now. I think it's kind of close. Obviously, Ja will be better next year, but looking at Chris Paul still got 2 or 3 really good years in him, in my opinion, playing at this level. I mean, a couple years ago, we said he was done, and look at this. I mean, it's crazy. So Chris Paul has had an incredible season this year, averaging 15 points per game with 10.7 assists, playing incredible defense once again, 33% from 3. You can live with that number. 48% field goal, that's great. 84% free throw, that's solid. 2 steals a game, that's great, right? You can live with all these numbers, and Chris Paul's an incredible leader, more importantly. And I think you're going to see something special. Let me touch on Devin Booker, and then I'll talk about where I think Phoenix goes this season. Devin Booker averaging 25.6. I went over his stats earlier, so I won't go over them again, but 25.6 in case you forgot. He's had an incredible season. He's improved defensively. He's been more efficient, in my opinion. He has shown a lot since Chris Paul's been out and showing a lot in his ability to step up and make big plays in big games. That's really important to me because a lot of people thought when Chris Paul got hurt, Phoenix is going to start losing a lot. Well, no, they're not. They're winning, and they're winning against good teams. So that's a good sign for Phoenix that Devin Booker can do that because, Chris Paul's going to be gone in a couple of years. He'll probably retire. So when he goes, you got to know and say, okay, we can build around DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker, and Mikal Bridges, and Cameron Johnson, and I think they can do just that, in my opinion. So let me get into a little bit of what I think Phoenix will do this season. They're going to have the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. So looking at the bubble, or not the bubble, I'm so sorry. Looking at the play-in, because the play-in started in the bubble, I mix those up. You're probably looking at a Minnesota first round, in my opinion. Minnesota's a good team. Don't sleep on them. They got a really good future. My next podcast, I'm going to do Minnesota because they got a good future. I predicted in my podcast actually this offseason that they would make the playoffs this year, and right now they're right there. So hopefully that prediction goes right, because not all of them go right for sure. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you look at it, they'll beat Minnesota 4-1 probably in the next round. More than likely you're looking at Utah, who they'll probably beat in 6 games. And then in the Western Conference Finals, from what I believe, and they could get either Minnesota in the first round or the Clippers more than likely. I think they'll get Minnesota, but they might get the Clippers. Sorry. And then the next round, you're probably looking at, in my opinion, Golden State. But you could be looking at Denver, depending on if Michael Porter and Jamal Murray come back and they play well. If they play well, I think you're looking at Denver. If they don't, I think you're looking at Golden State. Golden State's been, slacking a little bit, but they're still obviously a top-tier team. Curry's still probably the second best player in basketball. So Golden State's obviously got a lot in their arsenal. But I think it will probably be Golden State, right? Let's say it's Golden State. I think Phoenix beats Golden State in 7. And I think Phoenix goes to the championship. And we'll talk about the other side in another podcast. But I think Phoenix Suns are going to the championship again this year. And we'll see what happens when they get there. So make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like this podcast. And thank you.